Welcome along, folks, to another video from Gundog and Fly. I'm here topping up my little stove in my little what I call my little cubby. It's a little place I have at the back of the house here where I make these videos, obviously, and I store a lot of stuff that I use for fly tying and dog training and all that kind of stuff. So I'm lucky in the sense that I have this little area in which to do all that kind of stuff, and I don't have to, like years and years ago, ever before I built this little place, I used to have all my flying tying stuff in boxes in the house, and it would all have to be dragged out and put on the table, do whatever work I had to do, and then it all had to be put in. It was very inconvenient. So I am lucky insofar as I had the room at the back of the house to build this little room. It's only a small room, but it serves the purpose more than adequately. And like I said, I do make the interviews here, and done interviews with people here on some of the fly tyers and fly fishers from around the country. I have a lot to talk about this week. In response to my last video, there was a massive response, so I'm going to take my usual seat and go into a bit more detail about that. Right. Fáilte roimh like I said, a massive amount to talk about. So lots happened, and as regards the channel and how it goes forward, and that, and in the last video I explained the difficulties I was having in regards to the hunting here locally, the difficulties involved in trying to find places to hunt, and that basically I've decided that it's more or less a non-runner here locally. And shout out to all those people who phoned me and contacted me through social media and various other ways to invite me to hunt on their club grounds and their own private grounds. Really appreciate those offers. Absolutely, I was overwhelmed really by that sort of positivity and that sort of response. Thanks once again for that. And I am now, for the first time in 40 years, gun dogless. I don't have a gun dog anymore. And it was a huge decision. I had a very good little Springer bitch, but she was effectively, she was wasted here. She was wasted on me because I simply don't have the ground for her to kind of fulfill her destiny, if you like. She'd never get enough of work, given the situation here locally. Now, of course, I could travel to those places that people invited me to, and I'm grateful to them, of course, needless to say. But there's nothing like your own home ground, and I knew it intimately, but it's changed so much that unfortunately it's just not hunting ground anymore. And I'm now gun dogless, as I said. I have other dogs that I may talk about later on, but to be without a gun dog is strange for me, because I've always had gun dogs. Since I've been around gun dogs all my life, since I was a child. My father before me had gun dogs. I've always had gun dogs. Every breed you can possibly imagine and crosses thereof. And I've had some very good ones, mediocre ones, and I've had some useless ones, like everybody. Sinead Maraha, that's the way it is. I've just had to resign myself to that being the situation. Now, I'm not ruling out completely that I'll never hunt. I'm not saying I'll never hunt again. I have friends who I've hunted with for many years, and I'll likely go out with them in the future and maybe even make videos about it, but it's not going to be the same. So the name of the channel, of course, is now sort of up for debate, if you like. I'm looking for hints, and I'm going to change the name of the channel, because obviously Gun Dog and Fly, well, let's face it, being that I don't have a gun dog, it wouldn't seem appropriate to continue with that name on the channel. So I'm looking for suggestions once again from you good people for a new name for the channel. Now, besides the people who contacted me to invite me to go hunting in various places, there was a huge response on the channel, and I was asking for suggestions on what could I do going forward. And the most popular and the most common suggestion was that I do more on fly tying. Now, I've been fly tying virtually all my life as well, and I've learned a trick or two during that time, and I'm fairly knowledgeable about fly tying. I'm not saying I'm the world's greatest fly tyer by any measure, but I know what works, and I know how to make flies that work. So when I started fly tying, I was just a child, basically. I probably 10 years of age, 12 years of age, with equipment that my father had. He didn't even have a fly tying vise. He used to use a clothes peg to hold the hooks, when the hooks could be got. Very difficult to get anything back in those times. It's when I describe this to, say, people, we'll call them millennials, anyone who was born, anyone in their, say, 20s, 30s, when I describe to them how we used to tie flies, they think I'm taking the piss. They think I'm joking. Like, the amount of stuff that's available freely now, you can go on the internet and you can find virtually anything for tying flies. In comparison to when I started off, and for many, many years thereafter, it's just, the difference is like night and day. To try and get materials to tie flies when I was a child was all but impossible, and we just had to make do with very, very, very minimal equipment and very, very minimal materials. Materials were a great difficulty. There wasn't anyone who specifically dealt in fly tying materials at that time. You couldn't just go to a shop and buy fly tying materials. They simply weren't on sale. They just couldn't be got any place. And I believe that that wasn't only the case here in Ireland, it was everywhere. There were nobody specialised in that sort of stuff, and everybody had to kind of make do with the sort of stuff that you could find, maybe a chicken's feather. You might find a heron's feather on the bank of the river. Hooks were extremely difficult to get, particularly light hooks to tie dry flies, which was the principal way we fished. Fish for the most part with dry flies, but finding stuff to tie dry flies was so difficult. So, like, to try and give you an idea of the amount of stuff that's available now, I mean, like, I have any amount of stuff here that I've gathered up over the years, all kinds of stuff, and most of it actually never gets used. I used virtually the same materials all the time to tie more or less the same flies, and I tie a lot of flies. I tie thousands of flies every year. Now, I tie very few of those for myself. Most of them I tie for other people. So I've been fly tying a long time, and I've tie a lot of flies, so I'm well practiced at it, and I know what I'm doing. So the suggestions that I concentrate more on that, I'm going to basically do what you're suggesting. So I'm going to start off in this video describing what I use and what you need to start fly tying, i.e. the tools and materials that basically they're imperative if you want to tie nice flies and good flies that work. I've worked out through the years what's needed and what's not. So that's how I'm going to start off. I hope this is going to we'll say for someone who's starting off fly tying, that it will cut out a lot. There's so much stuff available, and salesmanship, you need this, you need that. The vast majority of stuff that's been sold for fly tying, you don't need it at all. It's there to make money for tackle manufacturers and people like that. So basically you need very, very basic materials. Now, it's nice to have all the range of all the different stuff, but look, I have bags and boxes of stuff like everybody else. I kind of fall into the I use a thing that we call in photography is I think it's called gear acquisition syndrome. Kind of irresistible. You buy it even though you don't need it at all, and that happens to everybody, including myself. I see some new color or something and I buy it, but like inevitably I don't really need it, you know. So I have refined it down to what's required to tie flies for that'll work. And in this video I'm going to start that process. So stay with me for that. I just have to do a small bit of organizing and I'll be right back to you. Right, so what does one need in order to tie flies? What are the basic requirements? Now, a place to tie flies is obviously a good idea. If you can get a dedicated area where you can leave your stuff out. I'm lucky, like I said, I have this little cubby or little room here where my stuff is permanently laid out and I could just start tying flies, just walk in the door and I can start immediately. A lot of people, including myself many years ago, I'd have boxes like this all over the place and in the house and have to drag them all out, tie your flies and then put them all back in. That's not the most convenient way. So if you can get a little dedicated area within your house, or if, like me, you're able to get a little dedicated room like this outside, all the better. Now, besides a place like this, you're going to need tools. And I'm going to move the camera now a little bit closer and I'm going to show you the basic tools that I use. Now, for me personally, this here is my most invaluable tool. It's a magnifying light. I've lost count of the amount of people who have contacted me through the years asking me where I got this. And where I got it was, I was visiting a cousin in England. He lived in a place called Purley in Surrey. And that's a long time ago. It's at least 25 years, if not 30 years ago. And I called into a shop called, at the time, I don't know whether they exist still or not, it was called Machine Mart. And I saw these, they were stacked in boxes. And I paid 25 British pounds for this magnifying light. And it's invaluable, particularly for people like me whose sight isn't the best. I wear glasses all the time. I have to wear glasses, otherwise everything's blurred. And as well as that, when the advantages of this are huge when you get used to using it, because obviously when you use this, you have to, your hands are behind it. And it takes a little while to get used to using it. If you're going to get one of these, what I would suggest is to get the glass or the part you look through as big as possible. Now, sometimes you see in some of the superstores, the new superstores, Aldi, Lidl, etc., you'll see similar things to this on sale, but the glass is very, very small. No good. It's not good enough to do the job. You need loads of light. Now, it has lights. In fact, the two bulbs in this are fluorescent bulbs, and they're the same original bulbs that were in it from the day I bought it. I've never had to replace the bulbs. Maybe I'm just lucky, or maybe they're just very long-lasting bulbs. But if you're getting one, make sure the glass is as big as possible. It's great for when you get a little bit more advanced and when you get to tying what I like to tie. A lot of the flies I tie are quite small, so I'm able to, it magnifies everything. This is a magnifier as well as a light. It's fantastic. I can see every little tiny nuance and every little turn of thread. I would highly recommend it to anybody, for anybody tying flies, but particularly for anybody whose eyesight isn't as good as it could be. Now, I've got some dogs here. They're in a kennel next door and they're making quite a bit of noise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop momentarily. I'm going to put a stop to that, and then I'm going to come back and talk about some of the other tools. Now that's the barking dogs sorted. Okay, the magnifier, or magnifying light, whatever you want to call it. Invaluable piece of equipment. Get one. Okay, what do I need after that? I need a fly tying vise. I need something to hold hooks. I'll swing this light back out of the way here. Now, maybe the light might help if I put it in over the top like this. Maybe, yeah, that'll do. This is the vise I've been using for the last 3 or 4 years. It's a Stonefo vise. Vise is a vise, basically. You can pay any amount of money for a vise. Their vices are available. You can buy them in kits for €20, £20, that sort of thing. And all it is, a vise just holds a hook. That's all it is. It's as simple as that. Like I said, we manage with clothes pegs. So this is a nice vise to use, what I call a grab and let go. Just you grab it, squeeze it, put your hook in, let go, and it holds your hook securely in place. That was quite a nice vise, and it does the trick, but it's not, you can rotate it and all kinds of stuff. But none of that is necessary. If you're starting out, any kind of vise will do. Anything that will hold the hook steady for you, that's all you need. So don't go spending loads of money. I mean, I've seen people spend literally thousands on a vise. I don't see the sense in it myself, but it's up to everybody to do their own thing, isn't it? So now, a vise. After that, for very basic beginners starting out, you're going to need some hooks. They're the next vital component. Now, again, hooks, you can buy them very cheaply and you can buy them very expensively, and what I would suggest is that you buy the best quality hooks that you can afford. Now, there are named hooks, brand names that are well known, like say Kamasan, Tiemco, Partridge, we have them in here, Hens, any amount of them here. What would be a very good quality hook and sort of, if you like, a good beginner's hooks. The flies I'm going to suggest that you start tying first of all are wet flies. So what I would suggest are Kamasan hooks. Kamasan make good quality hooks. They're very strong, and that's what you're going to need to tie. One second, I have some here, someplace. Right, this is these are Kamasan B170s in size 14. Size 14 and size 12, if you buy a box each of those to start off with, you won't go too far wrong. 14s and 12s are very, we call it middle of the road sizes for wet flies, and will work. Wet flies of that size will work any place, rivers, lakes or otherwise. So there's your hooks. Kamasan's good starter hook. Now, after that, the tools. Come back to the tools again. Now, up here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 13 at least bobbin holders for holding tying thread or tying silk, whatever you want to call it. Now, you can manage with just one. I've managed with just one for years because I couldn't afford more of them, as cheap as they were. And what I would do is I keep swapping the thread. Every time I needed to change the colour, I just swapped the thread into it. But now I have at least 13. There's probably more around the place there somewhere. And I have a different colour or different gauge of tying silk or thread in each one of them. Now, bobbin holders, again, you can pay very cheaply. You can buy them very cheaply, but what I would highly recommend are ceramic lined hooks. The the spigot or the stem is lined with ceramic, which protects the thread, and you don't get as many breakages as a result. And these can be bought relatively cheaply now, maybe €5 or €6 or pounds each. So, and I suggest that you get them short. You can get long. This is a long one, right? I find the shorter ones fit better in the hand, like that. As opposed to like that, you have the stem sticking out and it's more awkward. So buy the shorter ones. That's my personal preference. I like it short because my fingers are nearer to the fly that I'm tying. Okay. Now, scissors. You're going to need 2 pairs of scissors at least. Right? This is a Dr. Slick scissors. Now they're quite expensive. You don't need to buy Dr. Slicks. You can get good scissors, but this one has a really, really fine point, and I like that for very small work. Much like I don't know. It's a very, very precision instrument, if you like. And here then I have just an ordinary everyday scissors that you'll buy in any shop for a fiver for cutting wire. This scissors is used principally for cutting feathers and tying silk, and I use this scissors exclusively for that purpose. And then this scissors I cut, it's just for rough work, for cutting wire and heavier stuff like that. So you can replace these quite easily, but you need to mind the fine tip ones and not cut heavier stuff with it. There is no one scissors that will do it all. So 2 pairs of scissors. Now, the bane of my life, hackle pliers. I have dozens of them, of every possible make you can imagine, and I have never found a good one. I have never found one that won't break delicate feathers. This is the latest one, the latest iteration. Again, squeeze and let go. It's no different than any of the rest of them. They're all. Let me know if you've come across a good hackle pliers that works consistently and won't break delicate feathers such as partridge and those sort of feathers. Those really delicate feathers. They're a nightmare. I've tried every possible iteration of them, and none of them are any good. There's another example. Squeeze and let go again, still no good. Whip finisher. This is a whip finish tool. It's for tying basically a good knot. The finish off your flies, as the name implies, it's a whip finisher. It ties a whip knot. And they come in various iterations as well. I actually bend it. I have my own way of tying the knot, and as it comes from the packet, it won't work for me, so I have to bend and manipulate it around the place with the pliers to get the particular bends and stuff into it that suit me. So get yourself a whip finisher, very important. Now I'm going to go to materials next. Now, as I suggested, for a beginner, or a complete beginner, and I think most beginners start off tying wet flies. So what materials do you need? The very basics to tie wet flies. Okay, I've spoken about the hooks already. So in this case, Camasan B170s in a size 14. They would be a good start. Now, tying silk. Look up here. There's just so much of it available. Every possible size, every possible colour, and I'm not here to recommend or I don't get paid anything by any of the companies that I use their materials, so I use their names because they work for me, and I don't get anything from any of the companies, just so that you're aware of that. I've been using, for instance, uni thread. for years and years and years. The other one, I'm just trying to think of the name of it off the top of my head here now. We have Unithread, and there's one other that I just can't think of the name of right off. Let's see. I'm looking through it here and hoping that the name will occur to me. Anyway, I'll try to remember that and come back to it. But anyway, Unithread is one of the ones that I've used for many, many years. And typically, the most of the flies that I tie range from size 20 to size 12. Now, most of the flies tied in that range would be in the middle, sort of the 16s, the 80s, the 16s and the 14s. The 20s and the 12s are either end of the scale, if you like. And although I tie them from time to time, most of the flies I tie are sort of 18s, 16s and 14s. So to tie those kind of flies, 8/0 is a good all-round size of thread to use. It'll work for all of those sizes. Now, again, there's different materials. Threads, like you have just ordinary, we'll call it cotton thread, and it's on its own basically. And then you have waxed cotton thread. There's Kevlar thread made from Kevlar, the same stuff as made from body armor. It's just tough as nails and has its uses. What I'm trying to put across to you is that there's a whole variety of different threads that you can use. But for a beginner, what I suggest is that you get a decent quality thread, preferably pre-waxed in a size 8/0 or equivalent. Now, thread I've been using recently, and I find it extremely good, is Semperfli wax thread and this is it in 8/0. I find that thread, I just like it. I like the way it works. It's very good, and comes in a huge variety of colors and sizes, but 8/0 is a good starter. They also do another thread which I will come to and talk about at another time, and again, very useful. But for the time being, get yourself a couple of rolls. Say, get yourself a yellow, an olive, whatever colors take your fancy, just a tying thread. Okay, tying thread and hooks covered. Feathers. Right, again, I have refined it to a degree. Now, sometimes I get orders from people who ask me to tie a particular fly, and it then requires a very particular type of feather. Some people are very particular about flies. They want them tied with specific feathers from a specific part of the bird's plumage and all that sort of thing. And I have to try my best to comply with their wishes. Now, a lot of the time I can't, because some people look for exotic feathers, tying flies with feathers that I just simply don't have or can't get. So what I've done is I've refined it down to what I use most of the time. So if you want to tie wet flies, I'm going to show you these here. Now, these are good quality. Again, quality is important when you're tying flies. If you use quality materials, you'll inevitably produce quality flies. If you use poor quality materials, you'll produce poor quality flies. That's just the very nature of it. So for tying wet flies, these are whiting. They're called Brahma hen, spelled B-R-A-H-M-A, Brahma hen. And again, they come in a variety of colors. They're not mad expensive. And you have a whole variety of different sizes of feather to tie different size flies. There's an olive. There's sort of a grey here. And this one here, I suppose, is sort of a dun colour. So I use the three of those. Also, you can use, if you're a hunter, you can use the plumage from snipe, from woodcock. For tying wet flies, they're brilliant. Snipe is one of the best of all feathers for, let me see, I should be able to root them out here. I have snipe wings by the dozen here because over the years I shot quite a few snipe, and that's one wing. As you can see, I have a whole box of them. Lovely feather to tie flies with, but very delicate, and again the hackle pliers will, if you're not very careful, will break them, but you can tie a beautiful range of flies using snipe wings and just your basic tie and thread. That's all you need to tie effective wet flies. Just a few rolls of thread. There's another bag of snipe wings. Also, starling wings are good as well. Nice soft feathers, very mobile. I'm trying to think what else is required to tie wet flies. Oh yes, when you're tying the bodies of the flies, you can use just the tying silk on its own, and it will work just fine. If you want to copy specific patterns which require, say, wire ribs, again, you can buy wire in different gauges and a huge variety of colors yet again. And to make a rib on a fly, or even you can tie the body wholly made from the wire. Just touching turns of the wire, whatever color you like, and put on a snipe feather in front of it, and you've got an effective wet fly. Wire comes, like I said, in a huge amount of colors, and I think I have virtually all of them up here. The most commonly used ones are silver and gold, but again, experiment. So I think I've kind of covered the requirements for, or what's necessary to tie wet flies. Oh, I left one thing out. It's just occurred to me. Dubbing. Now these are boxes of dubbing. I have dubbing of all sorts and all kinds, and again, this is sort of what I've gathered up over the years. This is just some of it. You don't want to get too caught up in gear acquisition syndrome. Like, don't be buying loads of stuff that you don't need. Buy what's necessary to tie the fly that you want to tie. Like I said, I tie thousands of flies every year for a lot of different people, and I have to have all this stuff and more besides, but you don't need it. Dubbing. This is some of the stuff I make. I make it up myself. I mix a range of different materials together to get the desired color and the desired texture and color. So I mix, say, for example, hare's ear with glittery olive stuff together, and it just makes for superb bodies on flies, both wet, dry and nymphs. So bit of dubbing, but don't go mad. There's another box of this, just show you a few different colors in here. Again, most of it is stuff that I've made up myself, and I mix the colors together and the different materials together in a coffee blender, and I get the desired dubbing, basically. So that's it, folks. That's the first of the suggested videos. In the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start tying flies from the very, very beginning. So if you're a learner, or if you are trying to improve on your fly tying, I suggest that you check out the next video. I'll be tying a very basic wet fly and running through the procedure on how to start and how to finish it and get through it, basically. And I'll try to make it as simple and as easy to understand as I possibly can. So once again, thanks very much for joining me, and I just want to reiterate my many thanks to all the people who contacted me after my last video. I'm very, very grateful to you all, and Shin don Orsha agus be me kaint rish live an céadúr eile Slán go fóill.